After a small slate on Monday, we're looking at a huge Tuesday card. Unpredictable rotations can be a killer for anyone's DFS lineup, and it's probably the most important variable when examining NBA DFS. With that in mind, let's look at today's plays. Core plays: DeJounte Murray, PG, SG. ATL, $8,900 DraftKings, $8,900 FanDuel. I'm excited about Murray for the remainder of the season.
Trae Young will be out for the next 4 weeks, allowing Murray to run the show for the Hawks. We saw DeJounte play at a $10,000 level in that role with the Spurs in the past, and he's been playing like that whenever Young has been out.
In the 6 games Trae has missed this year, Murray is averaging over 50 DraftKings points per game, flirting with triple-double averages. Not to mention, Utah owns a 28th OPRK against opposing guards. Karl Anthony Towns, PFC. Min, $8,200 DraftKings, $8,500 FanDuel. Cat has been one of the most underrated players in the league this year, but he's been sensational whenever he plays the Spurs.
In fact, Towns has scored at least 43 DraftKings points in 8 of his last 10 matchups with San Antonio, averaging 51 DK points per game. That's no surprise since the Spurs sit 24th in defensive efficiency and 26th in points allowed.
Nikola Vucevic, C. Kai, $7,800 DraftKings, $8,100 FanDuel. Vucevic is one of the best centers in the NBA, but he's not being treated like it. The big man is averaging 40 DraftKings points per game, scoring at least 42 fantasy points in 8 of his last 9 outings.
That should be easy to reach against Detroit's defense, ranked 29th in defensive efficiency. In their last matchup, Vucevic had 51 fantasy points in one of his best games of the season. Cash game considerations: Luka Doncic, PG, DAL, $12,000 DraftKings, $12,400 FanDuel. Doncic is tough to fade right now.
The Slovenian is running away with the DFS crown, leading all players with 65 DraftKings points per game. His average has climbed close to 70 fantasy points over the last 2 months, and his 50-point floor is also the highest in the NBA.
We don't want to fade him against anyone, especially a Cleveland team he dropped 64 DK points against earlier in the year. Giannis Antetokounmpo, PFC, Mill, $11,500 DraftKings, $11,700 FanDuel. Giannis has been the 3rd highest scoring player over the last 3 months, and it seems no one is taking notice.
The Greek Freak averages 62 DK points per game in that span while establishing a 45-point floor. His matchup couldn't be much better either, with Charlotte surrendering the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing power forwards.
Stephen Curry, PG, SG, GSW, $9,500 DraftKings, $9,200 FanDuel. Chef Curry has carried the Warriors out of the deep hole they dug, averaging 46 DK points per game across his last 18 outings. The All-Star has scored at least 36 fantasy points in 15 of those while showcasing an 80-point upside.
Not many players have that sort of ability, and it is way more likely against Washington's defense. They own a 29th OPRK against opposing guards while allowing the most points in the league.
GPP targets Keontae George, PG, SG, Utah, $5,700 DraftKings, $5,900 FanDuel. This rookie has been inconsistent, mainly due to his role. The good news is that he's been inserted into the starting lineup and consistently sees 30 minutes a night.
In his 27 starts this year, George is averaging 28 DraftKings points per game. He's also got a 33-point average across his last 4 fixtures and needs to be above $6,000 on both sites in this newfound role. Not to mention, Atlanta ranks 29th in points allowed. Alex Caruso, PG, SG. Kai, $5,200 DraftKings, $5,900 FanDuel. Caruso has been an underrated asset for this team all season, stepping in as a starter in the absence of Zach LaVine.
This defensive stud is averaging nearly 30 DraftKings points per game in this expanded role and has a 25-point floor. That's what you're looking for from a sub-$6,000 player, especially against the second-worst defense in the NBA.
He had 24 DK points across 20 minutes in a reserve role against the Pistons earlier in the year, and seeing both of those totals rise by 50% would make AC one of the values of the day. Trey Jones, PG, SAS, $5,100 DraftKings, $5,700 FanDuel. It's hard to understand why Trey has been below $6,000 for this long. Jones has been given the starting point guard job in San Antonio, averaging 31 DraftKings points per game.
He's also scored at least 26 fantasy points in all but a few games since the promotion and scored 34 DK points against this Minnesota team less than a month ago. Value plays Draymond Green, PF.C. GSW. $6,400 DraftKings, $7,000 FanDuel. Green is quietly having a great season in Golden State.
The former All-Star has scored at least 27 DraftKings points in 14 of his last 16 games, generating a 34-point average in that span. His stat-stuffing ways should flow all night against Washington, surrendering the third most fantasy points to opposing power forwards.
We saw DG drop 47 DK points against them just last year. Bogdan Bogdanovic, SG, SF, ATL, $6,300 DraftKings, $6,600 FanDuel. We already recommended Murray in an expanded role in the absence of Young, but Bogey might see the most significant bump. This playmaker always finds himself in the starting lineup when one of those guys is out, scoring at least 27 DraftKings points in 8 of 9 starts this year.
That looks even better since he's averaging 32 DK points per game across his last 13 outings. We didn't even mention that Utah ranks 25th in points allowed and defensive efficiency.
Tyus Jones, PG, was $6,200 DraftKings, $7,100 FanDuel. It's been a tough season for the Wizards, but Jones has been a massive addition. The starting point guard averages 34 DraftKings points per game across his last 21 outings.
That makes the $6,000 price tag tough to justify, and a matchup with the Warriors should keep him rolling. He's got 30, 38, and 51 DK points in his last 3 starts against Golden State. Advantageous pricing. Marvin Bagley, PF.C. was $5,800 DraftKings, $6,800 FanDuel. Daniel Gafford, C. Dahl, $5,000 DraftKings, $6,000 FanDuel. Cole Anthony, PG, SG, ORL, $4,700 DraftKings, $5,900 FanDuel. Walker Kessler, C. UTA, $4,800 DraftKings, $6,200 FanDuel. Zach Collins, PF.C. SAS, $4,700 DraftKings, $6,200 FanDuel. Kyle Anderson, SF, PF. Min, $4,700 DraftKings, $5,700 FanDuel.